Hey, what's up? This is Nick with Ultimate Motorcycling, and today we're out here at the legendary Laguna Seca Raceway in Monterey, California. Now, you guys know what I'm talking about today. This is the 2021 Aprilia RSV4 factory. Of course, this is Aprilia's top-of-the-line superbike, and the RSV4 is one of the most iconic superbikes in the entire class. As you guys know, it is powered by that legendary V4 engine that has really made the RSV4 what it is today and made it just such a unique model in the class until recently when some of its competitors started coming out with V4 power plants. Now, this bike has a lot of changes, and since its first iteration, dating back to 2009, 2010, it has just been a very curated and well-loved sort of evolution. It has never gone through a full redesign, but every few years, Aprilia massages everything and just improves on the package to make it what it is today, and it has always been an excellent superbike. And today, we are seeing the next evolutionary step of the RSV4 with the RSV4 behind me, the standard base model, and the factory model. So we're gonna get into this first ride review, and I hope you guys stick around. Of course, the first thing that I want to talk about today is that just beautiful V4 power plant. Based out of Noale, Italy, Aprilia has developed probably one of my favorite engines in all of sport motorcycling. It's punchy, it's torquey, it's exciting, and it is insanely thrilling. And quite frankly, holding the throttle open over turn one at Laguna Seca, that'll wake you up in the morning. Now, the changes to this motor specifically for the 2021 model year are very important. So first off, you have a new crank, which has allowed a 1mm larger stroke. They did retain that same 81mm bore, and they've also done a couple other refinements to that crank. For example, it is a physically lighter, and they've also changed the inertia of it. So compared to previous generations of the V4, I actually feel like this motor spins up just a hair, not aggressively, but it spins up with a little bit more, it's a little bit more lively, we'll say. It can, get up into the revs just with that extra bit of quickness. Now, it's still a very tractable engine. You're dealing with some serious horsepower here. Of course, you have 217 registered at the crank from Aprilia in terms of horsepower. And then the other important point is that it's gone up a few points with torque, and it's now producing 92 foot-pounds of torque, which is pretty serious stuff. And importantly, with all of that, is that it is now delivering just 5% more of that power throughout the entire rev range when you compare it to the previous RSV4 1100 factory. Now, this is also a Euro 5 emission compliant bike. So despite very stringent emission standards, this bike passes it with flying colors and maintains that peak horsepower number, and also gains a little bit of torque and actually more of it through the rev range, like I said, which is impressive. But when we talk about rideability, the engine is just, it's really the centerpiece of this bike, and it makes it what it is because it is just so exciting and just so exhilarating. And it's just one of the best engines in the class, in my opinion. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the other changes that you guys are going to be experiencing. With the gearbox specifically, the quick shifter now has a updated Hall sensor, and it's always had a really good up-down quick shifter, so clutchless up and clutchless down shifting. And it has always been quite good, even in the early days, and they've always improved upon it, and even more so today. But going back into some tangible things that they've changed, and things that I really think that you guys will enjoy once you try it out, is along with the updated styling, you have updated ergonomics. So the seat is actually 9mm lower, and accompanying that are the new knurled foot pegs with more grip, and they are 10mm lower. So that doesn't actually compromise your lean angle, because Aprilia says that you've actually gained 1.5 degrees of lean angle because they've gotten rid of the peg feelers. So it makes those long-legged riders a little bit more comfy in the saddle of a superbike, which, as you know, can be a bit cramped. But, it's still a very sporting riding position, but I stand at 5'10" 32" inseam, and I'm pretty comfortable. I can still drive my weight through the foot pegs, and everything's honky-dory. And in that regard, I think they've actually improved the comfort. Now, the other piece of the puzzle when we talk about just comfort on the bike is the freshly designed fuel tank, which is now narrower, and it no longer has the kind of big wave style curvatures that the previous RSV4 and 2.0 have. And you can still grip it very well, but the bike actually feels a little bit more narrow. So that does require you to activate your core a little bit more. And, you know, overall, it makes it feel a bit more agile as well, in my opinion. Now, tying into that ergonomic side are the aesthetics, which you may think are a little bit disconnected. However, in this case, they are related. Now, this design, the overall aesthetics of it, date back to the original RSV4 design from Miguel Galuzzi, and they've really cared for that overall look. And that's something that I really respect about the RSV4. They've adopted a lot of the features from the RS660 and integrated them here with the DRL headlights that follow that ridge line that would have been on the previous model. But the important thing for the bodywork specifically is that everything has been made a little bit tighter, and the aerodynamic features are now actually integrated into the fairing itself instead of just kind of being an afterthought like they were on the factory model from 2020, I should say. So with that, you get this double wall fairing that we saw originally on the RS660 and better aero design. And it actually, according to Aprilia, is it allows 11% better wind protection for the rider, so you don't get as much buffeting. Now, really testing that over the front straight at Laguna, I would say that it does a pretty good job. You are protected. Now, the main thing is I can't do a comparison to a previous bike because we didn't ride the old ones. That said, it does pretty good. Now, with the factory model specifically, you get two very important things in the sense that you have the new Öhlins Smart EC 2.0 system. So you have electronic suspension, which adjusts your damping, compression damping and rebound damping. And then you also have forged wheels instead of cast. Now the RR uses just conventional suspension. Overall, when we talk about the updates with ergonomics and everything else, the big takeaway for the new RSV4 is the fact that it feels much more agile than previous generations, which is something that the previous bike could have used a little bit more of. It was always an extremely stable package, but it did require a little bit more effort to just flick it around and push it around, you know, and that's just the way it was. With this bike, they've livened it up a little bit, and they've done that in a couple ways. First, the geometry has been tightened up just a hair, and they've also added a new swing arm, which is inverted, a la MotoGP and World Superbike. So the center of gravity has been marginally lowered with the inverted swing arm. That swing arm is also 30% stiffer and has gone from a 7-weld design to a 3-weld design. They've also added a little bit more adjustment range with the axle slot itself. So you can adjust your geometry further by, you know, adjusting your wheelbase. But after diving into the electronic suspension settings, working on it for a couple sessions, I was able to get a lot of the stability that I've always known the RSV4 back into play, despite the fact that we were dealing with some pretty hair-raising conditions, I would say, confidence sapping conditions. You know, it was cold, wet at Laguna Seca today, and you know, still overall, the bike has been impressive, and you know, that's the thing about the RSV4 is as old as the overall namesake has been, and as much as it has evolved, it has always been a really solid package, and I think they're still doing that today. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is the fact that they've updated the muffler, as you can see here. Has a new catalytic converter, which is a little bit lighter and dropped the overall weight. And of course, you guys know that it comes with the best of the best with all the other best of the best electronic packages with IMU supported traction control, wheelie control, cornering ABS, engine braking modes, ride-by-wire throttle, etc., etc. And just to touch on the traction control just for a split second, yes, you still have the awesome paddle TC adjusters right there, and you can also program it your new 5-inch bonded TFT display to dive in there and adjust everything as needed, and the UI is quite good. Now overall, I'm really impressed with this bike. And this thing is going to set you back a cool $26,000. Now, if you want to save about 7 grand, you can jump over to that bad boy right there and get that thing for 19 grand. And you get, you know, standard suspension, which I think, you know, some people will enjoy. Or if you're a club racer, you might be aiming at that thing. Now, wrapping it up here at Laguna Seca with the 2021 Aprilia RSV4. You know, it's been a great day and had a lot of fun on this thing. And, you know, last thing I want to say is go ahead and be safe out there. Now, take care.